Fantastic. All right, wow. Okay. Thank you, everyone. It's great to be here, and a special thank you to Gloria and the entire WTTC team for an incredible and incredibly inspiring past 2 days. I'm Matt Devlin. I'm the head of international affairs at Uber. And what I'm hoping to do in the next few minutes, or the time I have remaining, is to give you a sense of one of the most exciting innovations we're working on at Uber and what we think can be the next frontier in urban mobility. And so I want to start by quickly reflecting on the sheer scale of the opportunity and the challenge when it comes to keeping our cities moving. So the world is urbanizing rapidly, right? More than half of humanity already live in our cities, and by 2050, we're going to add another 2.5 billion people to those cities. Now that is a tremendous opportunity. Cities are engines of economic growth, of poverty reduction and innovation. They give people access to better jobs, better healthcare, better education services. But rapid urbanization is also an incredible challenge. We're taking more than half of the world's population and concentrating them in less than 2% of the world's land. And so inevitably that creates enormous pressures that we have to manage. Probably most visibly of all in our daily lives, rapidly rising traffic congestion. So at Uber, what we're focused on is building a digital transportation platform that can help ensure that cities remain economically productive, socially inclusive, and environmentally sustainable as they continue to grow. So in more than 600 cities worldwide, we're building an integrated multimodal transportation platform so that when a rider picks up their phone, they see immediately and in one place an entire suite of more sustainable travel choices, combining electric bicycles with high occupancy shared cars, connecting into public trains and buses, right? And so that's the vision we want to support. And at the outer end of that wave of innovation is, of course, self-driving cars. Self-driving cars hold the promise of transformative benefits in everything from road safety to congestion relief. But if you're expecting self-driving cars, I'm going to disappoint you today, because today I actually want to go beyond even self-driving cars to show you what we think might be next. So all those modes of transportation I just mentioned, electric bicycles, shared cars, self-driving cars, buses, trains, they all operate at ground level, right? And so when we think about the next frontier in urban mobility, we're looking upwards, we're looking at the sky, right? And just as cities have built upwards with skyscrapers to escape some of the constraints they face with limited land in the urban core, we're looking to urban aviation to unlock that same third dimension for transportation. Now, in order to do that, we're going to need vehicles that can take off and land in an urban environment. And today, the only thing we have at hand is, of course, a helicopter. So we've looked very closely at helicopter operations to see whether and how they could serve urban mobility at real scale. And the challenge with helicopters is that they have inherent limitations when it comes to operating at real scale. They're noisy, they're expensive, and they're disconnected from the rest of the transportation network. So what we're doing is we're trying to develop a solution that can address each of those shortcomings. And we think it looks like this. Just as today, someone can pick up their phone, open their Uber app, press a button, and get a car, we want people to be able to press a button and get a flight. And we're calling this service Uber Air. And so the Uber Air aircraft itself is going to be a 4-passenger, all-electric, vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, or what's called an eVTOL for short, right? And so you can see from this rendering here, the eVTOL has both a fixed wing and also multiple small rotors, in contrast to the one large rotor you see on helicopters today. And it's that distributed electric propulsion that keeps the craft quiet, and it's this integration with our existing platform that's going to allow us to connect each flight to ground transportation before and after, and allow us to connect each rider to other riders on our platform so that those flights are shared, so the occupancy of each aircraft goes up and the price charged per rider goes down. Now ultimately, eVTOLs are going to operate within cities, but the first use cases are going to be transfers between suburbs and city centers and airports and city centers. So in this example, a trip between the marina in San Francisco and downtown San Jose, a trip I've done many times myself, traveling by eVTOL would take only 15 minutes. So that's nearly an hour and a half faster than driving and nearly 2 hours faster than taking the train. Now you could very well say, that looks great in theory and on this screen here, but can you actually make it a real thing? And honestly, if we tried to make it a real thing by ourselves, the answer would be no. So thank God that's not our approach. What we're doing is we're pulling together an entire broad set of stakeholders from across industry and government, everyone from aircraft manufacturers to infrastructure builders to aviation regulators and city planners, to work together to deliver urban aviation at scale for the first time. And this of course starts with the eVTOL itself. Just like we don't build the cars that operate on our platform today, we don't intend to build the aircraft that will operate on our platform in the future. Instead, we're partnering with leading manufacturers like Embraer, Bell, whose prototype you see on the left, and Boeing, whose prototype you see on the right. Now, even once we have the eVTOL, we of course need the infrastructure on which to land them and from which to take off. We're calling these skyports, very similar to helipads today, but much, much greater capacity. And so the first question we have to answer there is, none of these exist, so where are we going to build them? So let's take Los Angeles, for example. What this is a visualization of all the trips happening on Uber's ground transportation network today in Los Angeles during the morning commute. And we can sort the data to identify those areas of the city where more pickups are happening, colored blue here, and those areas of the city where more drop-offs are happening, colored red here. And then we can take this data and create a heat map of overall mobility demand across the entire city. And then we can use this to model demand overall and to make informed decisions about where we would locate skyports. And so the trick here is that we'll be able to optimize for where we know people are going to and from, and also where we would locate the skyport in order to best connect it back into ground transportation networks. And that integration is again key, because the better we can integrate these flights and their landing sites into ground transportation, the greater the number of possible riders, the higher the occupancy per aircraft, the lower the price point per rider. And that is the ultimate vision, right? At the end of the day, we want to provide what will be a mass market service at a price point that makes sense even for daily commutes. So just like the aircraft itself, we're not going to build the skyports. It's not what Uber does. It's not our comparative advantage. And so what we're doing is we're partnering with infrastructure and architectural firms around the world. And this is a design that one of our partners created, a mega skyport, capable of handling up to 1,000 landings per hour, and designed to account for the actual true physics of takeoff and landing and the complexities of things like rapidly charging the electric batteries of the aircraft. So if that's what it might look like, the question is, where might we see it first? And so we've already announced 2 pilot cities, Dallas and Los Angeles, and we're going to plan on having demonstration flights next year and the first commercial flights with paying riders in 2023. We've also announced a short list of 5 countries that we're considering for our first international outside the US pilot city. And you'll see there Australia, France, Brazil, India, and Japan. We plan to announce our selection in about 2 months in June. All right, so enough of me talking about what we're trying to achieve. I want to finish by showing you what the actual user experience door-to-door could be like in the future with Uber Air. So I hope that's given you a sense of why we think urban aviation is one of the most exciting parts of the future we're working to build, and I look forward to seeing all of you in that future. Thank you so much.